Okay, so in today's class, so first we are going to discuss about the problems related to single acting cylinder. Okay, what is the difference between single acting cylinder and double acting cylinder? What is the difference? Really?
It has one port.
Okay, single acting cylinder has one port.
Single acting cylinder one port.
ಹೌದು.
Double
Okay.
acting cylinder has two ports.
Double acting has two ports. Okay, so first we will discuss 5 problems related to single acting cylinder. Okay, then we move on to double acting cylinders. Okay, as you see in the cylinder, there is only one port, so that is the single acting cylinder. If you want to achieve extension stroke of this cylinder, then you have to supply air or you have to apply pressure from this end. Through this port you have to supply air, then extension stroke takes place. Okay, retraction will occur because of the spring. Okay, since it is spring return, okay, retraction will take place automatically when you stop applying pressure from this port or when you stop supplying air from this port. Okay, so retraction stroke will take place automatically because of the spring. Okay, this is the working of single acting cylinder. So next there is a problem in the exam. Okay, only the problem statement will be given, only this statement from this year to year, only this statement is given. You have to write components list and circuit. Okay, circuit and components list are not given in the problem. Okay, so they will give only the problem statement. You have to write components list and circuit. Okay, here the problem statement is the piston of a single acting cylinder is to clamp a component. When a push button is pressed, as long as the push button is activated, the cylinder must retain in the clamped position. If the push button is released, piston has to retract. So here the given problem is, so here they have not used direction control valve, but they have used the term push button. This push button is one of the component in a direction control valve. Okay, and for single acting cylinder 3/2 wave valve is sufficient. Okay, if it is a problem related to single acting cylinder, you can choose 3/2 wave valve. Okay, and since it is given push button, you have to choose push button operated 3/2 wave valve. This is the symbolic representation of push button, and this is the 3/2 wave valve. Okay, the piston of a cylinder is to clamp a component. So how this clamping operation is done is, when this piston will move forward, when there is extension stroke, it will go and hit. Okay, so the part. So because of that, clamping will take place. Because of the movement of the piston, clamping will take place. Okay, so that means we have to achieve extension stroke of the cylinder. So how we have to achieve this extension stroke? By operating a push button. So the piston of a single acting cylinder is to clamp a component. It will clamp a component when there is extension stroke. When a push button is pressed, you have to get extension stroke of the cylinder when you press this push button. Okay, as long as the push button is activated, that means as long as you keep applying, you keep pressing this push button, the cylinder must retain in the clamped position. That means in the extended position. That means at this location. If the push button is released, that means if you release this push button, then piston has to retract. That means it has to come back. So now you know the name of this component. It is a 3/2 wave valve, push button operated with spring return. This is this symbolic representation of spring return. This is push button operated, and 3/2 wave valve. Since there are two chambers or two squares, it is there are two positions. Okay, and there are three ports, 1, 2, and 3. In previous class we discussed about numbering of ports. Okay, so what do you call port 1? ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತೀರಾ one? What do you call port 1? Which port is denoted as 1?
Inlet, sir.
inlet, also known as pressure port. Okay, so 2 is working port. Okay, 3 is exhaust or release port. So first, before this is the initial position of the direction control valve before actuation. Whether it is normally open or normally closed.
Normally closed.
Normally closed. So now we can see there is no contact between 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 madhye contact break agide. So that's why it is normally closed. Okay, when you actuate push button, what will happen? So when you press the push button, position shifts. Position shift agadu andre. So this arrow mark ideyala, this position will be actuated. That means there will be contact between 1 and 2. When you operate push button, so the contact between 1 and 2 takes place. Okay. So then if you supply air through inlet, so air can pass to 2. Then it will pass through this pipe or hose. Then air will be supplied to this end. Then extension stroke takes place. With push button press ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ air move ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Okay. So because of that extension stroke will take place. If you keep on pressing this push button, it will be retained in the forward end position. Okay. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Okay. So next, when you release the push button, again the position shifts. It will go back to the initial position. Initial position andre, so no contact between 1 and 2. So there will be contact between only 2 and 3. So during this position, what happen is, because of the spring, retraction takes place. Retraction stroke takes place. During retraction stroke also, the air accumulated inside the cylinder during forward stroke need to be taken out. Okay, so that will happen during retraction stroke. Idrolagade ತುಂಬಿರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, air ವಾಪಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, again that will come through this path, through this hose pipe. So like this, then from 2 to 3, and the air will get released to atmosphere through release or exhaust port. Okay, so this is how this will operate. When you operate push button, there will be contact between 1 and 2. So then air will move. It will be supplied to cylinder. Extension stroke will take place. When you release the push button, again the contact between 1 and 2 will break. That means it will move back to initial position, that is 2 and 3. Okay, so during that, because of the spring, retraction stroke takes place, air will come out of this path, and then 2 to 3 it will be released to atmosphere. Okay, this is how it will work. Again, components: single acting cylinder and 3x2 way valve, that is, it is push button operated and it is having a spring. Okay, so next, this we discussed in the previous class. Okay, those who have not attended previous class, once again you can understand how direction control valve works. Okay, initially you can see it is normally closed. In this problem also, it is normally closed. That means if you look inside the direction control valve, this is the structure. Okay, there are chambers. This is the chamber of port 1, this is chamber of port 2, and this is chamber of port 3, and there is a plunger or spool. Okay, so the position of the valve is decided by the position of this plunger. Okay, so before actuation of the valve, this is the position of the plunger. Okay, so now you can see, so there is no contact between 1 and 2. So that means air cannot move from 1 and 2. This path or this opening is blocked by the spool. Okay, when you actuate the valve, that means by operating push button, if you press the push button, what is going to happen inside the valve is, this plunger will move downwards like this. When it moves downwards, now we can see opening or path for movement of air from 1 to 2 gets created. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ 1 to 2 air move ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ, so opening gets created. Okay, and at the same time here 2 to 3 air can move. Okay, so air can pass from 2 to 3, but here now we can see, so this path has been blocked. 2 to 3 air cannot move. Okay, so like this it will operate. This is the working principle of direction control valve. So this is how this is the animation of working of single acting cylinder. Okay, this is a 3x2 way valve, and this is the spring return. cylinder, spring return single acting cylinder. Okay. So this is the initial position where you have not actuated the valve. Okay, so when you have not actuated the valve, there will be contact between 2 and 3. Okay, so when you actuate the valve, so then air will be supplied. Okay, so when air will be supplied from this port, extension stroke takes place. This is the extension stroke and this is the retraction stroke. Okay, next second problem. The piston of a single acting cylinder is to travel out after actuating a pilot operated valve by another push button operated valve and return to its end position after the push button has been released. It is also similar to previous problem, but only difference is we are using two direction control valves. In order to understand how air operated or pilot operated valve works, we are considering this problem. The piston of a single acting cylinder is to travel out. Travel out means extension stroke of the cylinder has to take place. Has to travel out after actuating a pilot operated valve. Okay, when you actuate this valve, pilot operated valve, extension stroke has to take place. Okay, and return to its end position after the push button has been released. So here in this circuit, what you are doing is, since you should have a push button, that means you should have a push button operated 3/2 wave valve. Since it should be actuated by a pilot operated valve, so you should have pilot operated 3/2 wave valve. Okay, so both are required for this problem according to the problem statement itself. Okay, by looking at the problem statement, you can identify the components. One component is single acting cylinder. Next, pilot operated valve means pilot operated direction control valve. Next, push button means, again, in order to where you are going to operate push button is in direction control valve. That means you need a push button operated direction control valve. Now, again, it is normally closed. Okay, when you operate the push button, there will be contact between 1 and 2. So this position get actuated. So air can move from 1 to 2. When air can move from 1 to 2, it will pass through this line. Okay, and air is supplied to this valve. Okay, when air is applied to this valve, what is going to happen in this valve? Okay, how a pilot operated valve will work. So in previous class we discussed different types of actuation. You can actuate a direction control valve with the help of mechanical signals like pressing a push button, operating a lever, okay, or by using roller you can actuate. So there is another type of actuation where you can use even air for actuation. If you send air, by that also you can change the positions. So this valve is going to operate based on the air signal. Okay, so you are going to press the push button. When you operate the push button, so there will be contact between 1 and 2. So then air will move through this path, and because of this supply of air, so this valve get actuated. Okay, when this valve get actuated, so again initially it is in closed position. When you send the air signal, there will be contact between 1 and 2. When there is contact between 1 and 2, again air will move through this path and extension stroke takes place. Okay, this is how it will work. Next, when you release the push button, okay, so as long as you hold the push button, it will move towards forward end position and it will be retained in that position only. Okay, next, when you release this push button, what happen is, so again this valve will go back to initial position, that is no contact between 1 and 2. When there is no contact between 1 and 2, air cannot pass through 2. It will break air itself. Okay, air cannot go to port 2. Okay, so next, if there is no supply of air through this line, again it is not receiving any signal. Again, if it is not receiving air signal, it will go back to its initial position. That means again here also contact will get breakdown. Okay, so when this contact breakdown, because of the spring, retraction stroke takes place. Okay, so these are the components: single acting cylinder, 3x2 wave valve, air operated with spring return. So here this is also spring return, and it is operated by air. Another name for air operated is pilot operated, okay, or pneumatic operated. These are the terms used for actuating a valve using air signal: air operated, pilot operated, or pneumatic operated. Okay. So this is a 3x2 wave valve, push button operated with spring return. So next, there is another problem. The piston of a single acting cylinder is to travel out after operating any one of the push buttons and return to its end position after the push button is released. Okay, getting one output based on two inputs. Which logic, which type of logic, or which type of gate is it? ಯಾವ gate apply ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ? So you have two inputs. If only one input is available, you are going to get the output. OR gate. Okay. So here in this case, so this circuit make use of OR logic. That means if there are two inputs, you are going, if there are if only one input is available out of two, you are going to get the output. Okay. In order to execute this OR gate, which component is used in the pneumatic circuit that we discussed in the previous class? So what do we call this component? This is used to execute OR logic in a pneumatic circuit. Shuttle valve. Okay.
Shuttle valve.
So this is the shuttle valve. This is used to execute OR logic. Okay. Now, so we know the problem statement. The piston of a single acting cylinder is to travel out after operating any one of the push buttons and return to its end position after the push button is released. So since you have to get two push buttons, that means operating any one of the push button means you should have two. Okay, you have to choose one means at least you should have two. Okay, so that's why in order to get two push buttons, you have to use two push button operated 3x2 wave valves. Okay, now you can press either this push button or this. ಯಾವ್ದಾರ ಒಂದನ್ನ press ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು. Okay, that is sufficient. If you press this push button, what is going to happen is initially it is in closed position. When you press the push button, there will be contact between 1 and 2. This position gets actuated. When this position gets actuated, air will pass through this path. Okay, so this is the puppet. Okay, so we call this component as puppet. When air is applied from this end, because of the pressure of the air, this puppet will move towards right end. So it will move to this right extreme position. Okay, so illige hogi ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so this puppet will move towards the right extreme position and it will block the path. So itara illinda illi shift agutte. Okay, when this puppet shift to this location, then so air can pass from here to here like this. It will pass through this path. So idra mele hinge hogi, so air will be supplied to this. Okay, then extension stroke takes place. So this is for when you operate this push button. If you choose the first one, or on the left hand side, the direction control valve on the left hand side, if you choose, so like this it will work. This will be moved to this puppet will be moved to right extreme position and air will move through this path and it will result in extension stroke of the cylinder. Okay. So now, if you choose this port, okay, so this direction control valve, instead of operating the left hand side direction control valve, if you choose the direction control valve on the right hand side, this is also normally closed one. When you press the push button, okay, so the position gets shifted. Initially it is in closed position. Now it is going to get open. That means this will be actuated. This position is going to get actuated. That means here there will be contact between 1 and 2 like this. Here can move from 1 and 2. So when you actuate this push button, there will be this position get actuated. That means air can move from 1 to 2. Then it will move through this path. Okay. So when pressure is acting from this end, this puppet, the pressure will be acted on the puppet. Because of this air pressure, it will move to left extreme position like this. The puppet is going to this position, move to this position. Okay. So when this puppet is moved to this position, then air can move through this path like this, and pressure will be applied. Extension stroke will takes place. Again, if you release this push button, then again it will go back to initial position. That means no contact between 1 and 2. So then air cannot be supplied. When pressure is not acting on the puppet, once again it will come back to this initial position. That is it will come back to center position. When it come back to center position, it will block the further movement of air. When there is no air supply to the cylinder, again obviously retraction stroke will take place because of the spring. Okay, so this is how it will operate. If you have any doubts, you can ask. If you want any clarification, or if you have any doubts, okay, you can ask. Okay, these are the components. Single acting cylinder, shuttle valve. This is the shuttle valve. Two 3x2 wave valve. So there are two 3x2 wave valve. This is one and this is another. So these two are operated by push button. Here you can see, and they are having spring return. Okay. So that means,
sir.
Really.
Sir, ಎರಡು valve at the same time operate ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ?
So same time operate ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. So if you apply pressure from both ends, ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ this puppet will retain in the center. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕಡೆನೂ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದನೂ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅವಾಗ ಇದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ಗೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಅವಾಗ ಈ ಪಾತ್ನ ಇದು ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ದಿ ಸಿಗ್ನಲ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ
ವೇರಿಯಬಲ್ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ
ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವಾಗ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಒಂದರಿಂದ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ಲೈನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅವಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾತ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಮೋರ್ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈಡ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿಸ್ ಎಂಡ್, ಓಕೆ, ದೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಮೂವ್ ಟುವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆದಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾತ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಫರ್ದರ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎರಡು ನೀವು ಆಪರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್, ಫಾರ್ ದಟ್ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅನದರ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ವ್ ದಟ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ದಟ್ ಇನ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಗೆ, ಸೊ ಆ ಕಾಂಪೋನೆಂಟ್ ಆಪರೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಗೆ, ಸೊ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಸೈಮಲ್ಟೇನಿಯಸ್ಲಿ, ಸೇಮ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಸೈಮಲ್ಟೇನಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ದಿ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಬೇರೆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ವ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಶಟಲ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ವ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ಆ ಕೇಸಲ್ಲಿ. Okay, if you have any other questions, you can ask. Okay, so I will move on to next problem. Okay, so the piston of a single acting cylinder is to travel out after operating a push button and return to its end position after the push button is released. Same condition. Okay, but there is an additional condition. Also, the piston speed of a single acting cylinder is to be adjustable for the advance movement. So you have to control the speed of forward stroke, that is extension stroke. So in order to control the speed of forward stroke, you use a valve. Okay, what do you call this valve?
Check valve.
Check valve.
Check valve or flow control valve. Okay, so by regulating the flow, you are controlling the speed. Okay, how you cannot increase the speed. Only thing you can do is you can reduce this speed with the help of this flow control valve. If you supply less amount of air, okay, so you are going to achieve extension stroke at slower pace. Okay, you can reduce the speed of extension stroke by supplying less quantity of air. So that you can do with the help of this flow control valve. Okay, so in the problem, if they ask you to control the flow of forward or retraction stroke, based on that you have to make use of flow control valves. Okay, So now here also it is a push button operated, since it is given push button. Okay, so initially it is a normally closed valve. When you press the push button, so again position gets shifted. That means there will be contact between 1 and 2. Okay, so when you press the push button, so there will be contact between 1 and 2. So this position will get activated. Andre ee position will barutte, andre idu activate agirutte. Okay, so then air can pass through this line. Okay, now when air enters this location, okay, so it is having two paths. Either it can take this deviation or it can move through this line. Some amount of air will try to escape in this line, and some amount of air will move through this throttle. Okay, so if air try to escape through this path, what is going to happen is, again this puppet will move up and it will block. So it will move to the extreme position, it will block the path. Okay, and air cannot move, air cannot escape through this path. Okay, when air is applied from this direction 1 to 2, so here some amount of air try to move in this direction, but it will result in application of pressure on the puppet valve. Because of this pressure, this puppet will move upwards and it will block this path. Okay, then air doesn't have this option, this option gets blocked. Now it has to move only through this throttle valve. Okay, so here you have a knob. By rotating the knob, you can adjust the air. It is like the valve which we use for water tap. Okay, so we use taps. Okay, so there also, by rotating the tap, we will regulate the flow of water. Okay, similarly here also, by there will be a knob. By rotating the knob, you can regulate the amount of air that has to flow through this throttle. Okay, ಎಷ್ಟು ಮೂವ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ throttle rotate ಮಾಡೋದ್ರ ಮೂಲಕ you can adjust. Okay, when you supply less amount of air, or when you apply when you allow only a small quantity of air to pass through this throttle with the help of the knob, then what is going to happen is less amount of pressure is going to act, or the speed of extension stroke will get reduced because of less amount of air supplied through this port. Okay, again if you release the push button, same thing will happen. Okay, so if you release the push button, the 1 to 2, the contact between 1 to 2 gets break. That means instead of this position, 2 to 3 position will get activated. Because of that, there will be no supply of air. When there is no supply of air, pressure is not acting from this end. When pressure is not acting from this end, obviously retraction stroke will takes place. Okay, next during the retraction stroke, the air that is collected inside the cylinder has to come out. Okay, so during retraction stroke, that means during backward stroke, the air collected inside the cylinder will come out. Okay, so again that air will come through this path. Okay, so now air can easily pass through this path also. Okay, so since it is unidirectional, it cannot pass through this throttle, so air will take this path. Okay, when pressure is applied from this end, again throttle cannot move upwards. Only thing is, if there is space, it can move downwards. Already there is here you can see there is a space for movement of air. Okay, already gap ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ there is a vent, so ಇಲ್ಲಿ it close agilla. Okay, so when air is supplied from this direction, it can easily escape. Okay, escape means again it is a closed valve, so it will come here and it will escape through this exhaust valve. Okay, this is how it will operate. So in flow control valve, so ಈ direction ಅಲ್ಲಿ puppet ಮೂಲಕ ಏರ್ ಫ್ಲೋ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಅದೇ ರಿವರ್ಸ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಈ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಬಂದಾಗ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಈಸಿಲಿ ಕಮ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದಿಸ್ ಪಾತ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್. Okay, so if you have any doubt, you can ask. So the components are single acting cylinder, one-way flow control valve. So this is the one-way flow control valve. So that means it is controlling only the flow in this direction. When it moves upwards, it is controlling. Whereas flow from downward direction, it is not regulating. That's why it is one-way flow control. Only upward flow it is regulating. Whereas downward flow, it is not regulating that. Next, another problem, almost similar to previous one. Okay, the piston of a single acting cylinder is to travel out after operating a push button and return to its end position after the push button is released. Also, the piston speed of a single acting cylinder is to be adjustable for the advance and return movement and separately throttled. That means separately controlled. So the difference between previous problem and this is, in the previous problem, you are regulating speed of only the extension stroke, only the forward stroke. Whereas in this problem, you are also regulating speed of retraction stroke. Both extension and the retraction stroke speed is regulated. Okay. So the one flow control valve is used to regulate speed of extension stroke. Another is used to regulate speed of retraction stroke. Okay. When you operate this push button, again same working principle. This position get actuated. That means there will be contact between 1 and 2. Air will move from 1 to 2. For this inlet, air is supplied from compressor to manifold block and from manifold block to this inlet. Okay. ಅದು ಡಿಫಾಲ್ಟ್ ಅದನ್ನ ಕನೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ. When air is made available at inlet. Okay. So when there is contact between 1 and 2 because of push button, when you press the push button, this condition gets actuated. Because of that, there will be contact between 1 and 2. Okay. When there is contact between 1 and 2, here again try to flow in both directions. Okay, so it will try to escape through this path and this. Okay, so since it is only unidirectional, air cannot move in this direction. What it is going to do is it will escape through this path. Okay, so it will escape in this path. Again, it will move here. Here, if you try to escape through this shuttle, it will move upwards. This puppet will move upwards and it will block this path. Next, the remaining option is air has to move through this throttle. Okay, when it is moving through this throttle, you can adjust the amount of air that has to pass through this throttle with the help of a knob. By that, you are regulating speed of extension stroke. Okay. Next, during retraction also, the air collected inside the cylinder, it has to come out. Okay. So during retraction stroke, you are going to release the push button. When you release the push button, air is not supplied. When air is not supplied, no pressure is acting on the piston. If there is no pressure acting on the piston, so then because of the spring, there will be retraction stroke. Okay. During retraction stroke, the air collected inside the cylinder come out of this path. Okay. Again, it cannot escape through this line. What it is going to do is it is coming in this direction. Okay, and once again, air can escape through this path because air is pressure is applied from in downward direction. Okay, puppet cannot move upwards. Because of that, there is a path for movement of air. Okay, in the birth air. Once again, when it try to come out of this, okay, so when it try to escape through this path, because it is in downward direction, okay, this puppet will move downwards and it will block this path. Illi idu escape agakagalla air. So then it has to move through this throttle. Ee throttle mulkane barabeku. Again, you are regulating the flow. If you regulate the flow of air during retraction stroke, so again ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನೀವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗ ಏರ್ನ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗ ರಿಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೋಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏರ್ನ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ತೆಗೆಯೋದು ಸ್ಲೋ ಆದರೆ so the speed of retraction stroke also will get reduced. Okay, you are obstructing the flow or you are obstructing the air escaping from the cylinder. Okay, so by that you are able to achieve reduction in speed of retraction stroke. Okay, so illi you are going to regulate with the help of the knob, then so it is going to escape to 2 to 3. Okay, so by this you are regulating the speed of both extension and retraction strokes. Okay, so this is the component list: single acting cylinder, then one way flow control valve. There are two one way flow control valves. One is for forward movement, this is for forward movement, and this is for retraction or return movement of the piston. Okay, next okay, so double acting cylinder. So if you have any doubts regarding single acting cylinder, you can ask. Okay, another doubt is there? Okay, otherwise I will explain two more problems related to double acting cylinder in today's class. Okay, next double acting cylinder. The difference between single acting and double acting cylinder is, so in case of double acting cylinder, you have two ports. You can see this is one port and this is another port. That means here there is no spring. That means retraction stroke cannot take place automatically. So for retraction stroke also you have to supply air. If you supply air, then only retraction stroke can take place. For both forward and retraction stroke, you have to supply air. That is the difference between single acting and double acting cylinder. Okay, so this is the working of double acting cylinder. So usually for double acting cylinder we use 5/2 direction control valve. 5/2 direction control valves are usually used to operate double acting cylinders. Okay, you can see for retraction stroke also air is supplied from this end. This is the forward stroke. When air is supplied through this path, forward stroke takes place. When air is supplied through this path, retraction stroke takes place. Okay, so this is the problem statement. A double acting cylinder is to extend when a push button is operated. Upon release of the push button, the cylinder is to retract. A pilot valve also be used. Okay, since in the problem they ask you to use pilot valve, you are using it. Otherwise, you can use only one push button operated 5/2 valve and you can get both extension and retraction strokes. But in the problem, they ask you to use pilot valve. Pilot valve should also be used. Okay, that's why you are using this. Okay, this is a 3/2 way valve, push button operated with spring return. This is 5/2 way valve, pilot operated with spring return. Okay, so a double acting cylinder is to extend when a push button is operated. Upon release of the push button, the cylinder is to retract. A pilot valve also be used. So here we have making use of pilot valve because it is given in the problem. Okay, so you will press the push button. When you press the push button, there will be contact between 1 and 2. Then air will pass through this path. When this 5/2 way valve receives air signal, okay, then this position get actuated. Okay, this position get actuated means there will be contact between 1 and 4 because of this, and there will be contact between 2 and 3 because of this. Okay, in case of 5/2 way valve, when the position gets shifted, that means this is going to get actuated. contact between 1 and 4. This is 1. Next, contact between 2 and 3. Okay, so like this position will get shifted. Okay, when it receives air. Okay, so then the position will be like this. Position gets shifted because of the change in position. Air can pass from 1 to 4. Okay, when air can pass from 1 to 4, that is from inlet or pressure port to working port, so air will move through this path. Okay, and when air is passing through this path, there will be extension stroke. Next, when you release the push button, the path for movement of air from 1 to 2 gets breakdown. So because of change in position, that is when you release the push button, the valve will move back to its initial position. That means no contact between 1 and 2. When there is no contact between 1 and 2, there will be no air in this line, no air in this line. When there is no line in this air in this line, because of spring, this valve is going back to its initial position. That is so this is the initial position. When there is no air supply, when you release the push button, no air supply between 1 and 2. Because of that, no air supply to this location also. Okay, no air supply to this location also. When there is no air supply, valve will go back to initial position. Initial position means contact between 4 and 5 and 1 and 2. Okay, so ಮೊದಲು 1 and 4 ಆಗಿತ್ತು ಆಕ್ಟಿವೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ, ಇವಾಗ ಪುಷ್ ಬಟನ್ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ 1 and 2 ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವೆನ್ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ 1 and 2, air will pass from inlet port and working port 2. So that means through this path. So when air is supplied through this port, retraction stroke takes place. Okay, so like this it will work. When you operate the push button, contact between 1 and 2, air will pass through this path. This valve will get air signal. Because of the air signal, position gets shifted. When position gets shifted, contact between 1 and 4, air will be supplied, extension stroke. When you release the push button, contact between 1 and 2 breaks, no air in this path. Again it will go back to initial position, that is air will move from 1 to 2. Because of contact between 1 and 2, retraction takes place. Okay, this is the working of a double acting cylinder in this problem. Okay, components: double acting cylinder, 5/2 wave valve. It is air operated because this 5/2 wave valve is operated with the help of air signal. It is air operated or pilot operated or pneumatic operated valve. Okay, next 3/2 wave valve, push button operated with spring return. Okay, if you have any doubts regarding this problem, you can ask. Otherwise I will move on to next problem. Okay, if you don't have any doubts, I will move on to next problem. Okay, this is the last problem that we are going to discuss in today's class. Okay, so totally there are 15 problems in pneumatics and 5 to 6 problems in hydraulics. Depending on how many classes I am going to get, okay, I will try to cover. Okay, so first I will cover 12 problems in pneumatics, and then I will cover hydraulics part. If I get more time, I will cover remaining pneumatic problems in later classes. Okay. This is the problem statement. A double acting cylinder is to extend when both push buttons are operated. So here both push buttons are operated through the detent 5/2 wave valve. The cylinder is to retract upon release of push buttons and detent knob. Okay, in previous class we discussed about detent knob. Okay, what do you mean by detent? How it will work? What is the difference between push button and detent? What is the difference? Okay, this is the push button and this is the detent. What is the difference between push button and detent? When will you use detent knob and when will you use push button?
Locking system.
Okay. For locking system we use detent. That means ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ನೀವು ನಾವ್ ರೊಟೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ನೀವು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಹೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಅಗತ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಲಾಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅನ್ಲಾಕ್. ವೆರಾಸ್ ಪುಷ್ ಬಟನ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ಬೇಕು. ವೆನ್ ಯು ರಿಲೀಸ್ ದಿ ಪುಷ್ ಬಟನ್ again it will go back to initial position. Whereas in case of detent knob, if you rotate the knob, okay, so you can get continuous actuation. The direction control valve will be in actuated position once you rotate the knob. ನೀವು ಮತ್ತೆ deactivate ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ once again you have to unlock. That means once again you have to rotate the knob in reverse direction. Okay, so that is the advantage of detent knob. ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನ ರೊಟೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಯೇಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನೀವು ನಾಬ್ನ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ತಿರುಗಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅದು it will go back to initial position. Okay, so a double acting cylinder is to extend when both push buttons are operated. That means two inputs need to be provided to get an output. Okay, through the detent 5x2 valve. So two push buttons, and again these two push buttons need to be operated through detent 5x2 valve. The cylinder is to retract upon release of push buttons and detent knob. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಎರಡು ಪುಷ್ ಬಟನ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಟೆಂಟ್ 5x2 ವೇವ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ವ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇನ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ two push buttons you are using two 3x2 wave valves. Okay, so since detent 5x2 wave valves directly mentioned in the problem, you are using this component. Double acting cylinder, you are using double acting cylinder. But what do you call this component? What is the name of this component?
Twin pressure valve.
Twin pressure valve or dual pressure valve. So it is going to execute which logic?
And.
Okay, so in case of AND, if both inputs are present, you are going to get an output. Okay, that is the AND logic. In order to get an output, all inputs should be present. Okay, so in order to execute this type of condition, we make use of twin pressure valve or dual pressure valve, or also known as two pressure valve. Okay, initially you will rotate this knob, you will rotate the detent. Okay, so key tara irutte athwa knob irutte, you will rotate it. When you rotate, then rotate the knob, this valve get actuated. Okay, initially this is the initial position, contact between 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. This is the initial position. When so if you actuate this valve, then the position gets shifted. That means there will be contact between 1 and 4 and 2 and 3. Okay, so when there is contact between 1 and 4, air will move from inlet to 4, then it will move through this path. Then air is supplied to both inlets, inlet of second valve and inlet of first 3x2 wave valve. Okay, so ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇದು ಡಿವಿಯೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎರಡು ಕಡೆಗೆ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಏರು. ಸೊ ಎರಡು ಕಡೆಗೂ ಏರ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಸೈಮಲ್ಟೇನಿಯಸ್ಲಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ನಾವು ಏರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅವೈಲಬಲ್ ಅಟ್ both inlets, inlet of this valve and inlet of this, it is available at both ends. But air cannot move further because look at the condition of 3x2 wave valve. Okay, so both are closed. ಇದೆರಡು ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಒನ್ ಹತ್ರ ಏರ್ ಅವೈಲಬಲ್ ಇದ್ರೂ 2ಗೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇದು 1 to 2 ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಡೂ, ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ 1 to 2 ಏರ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮೂವ್, when you press the push button, okay, then air can move from 1 to 2 because of the change in position. Okay, so now when you operate the detent knob, position gets shifted, 1 to 4 get contacted. Okay, there will be contact between 1 to 4. Because of that, air is available at inlet ports of these two valves. Now if you press the push buttons, if you press both push buttons simultaneously, then there will be shift in position. There will be contact between 1 and 2. Again, there will be contact between 1 and 2. Now, pressure is going to act from both ends. Okay, when pressure is acting from both ends, so then only, so you will get output. Pressure head kadane act agtidre ಈಗ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಇದೇ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, because of that you are going to get the output and there will be forward stroke. Okay, when you release the detent knob, okay, so if you release any one of this, okay, so next what is going to happen is if you release this detent knob, okay, again it will go back to initial position, no air supplied from 1 to 2. Okay, so even if you are pressing these push buttons, if there is no air available at inlets, you cannot supply air. Okay, so if you release these push buttons, okay, so then if you change this push button, what is going to happen is, so if you release this knob, okay, it will go back to initial position. Initial position andre, so there will be contact between 1 and 2. So air will pass through this path and it will be applied from this end. Okay, because of that retraction stroke takes place when you release the detent knob. Okay, so this is how it will work. Okay, so these are the components: double acting cylinder, twin pressure valve, 3x2 wave valve. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask. Otherwise, I will wind up this class. So I will take the attendance. I will download.